mastering engineers or like bedroom producers. Hello and welcome to the Recording Conservatory of Austin. We're here with another Thursday night live stream seminar. My name's Jet Jaguar, and tonight's topic is going to be Steven Slate Drums, the new version, SSD5, and what I would consider a basic tutorial in using that platform for drum sound design. There is a lot to say about this plugin, its graphical interface, its routing options, the many options it gives you for basic setups. Steven Slate has a really great haircut and a lot of really detailed videos about that cover all of that. So rather than simply reciting the manual here in the live stream, the plan is to sort of pick up right where the manual leaves off and really start using the power of SSD5 to build some otherwise impossible drum sound design. We're going to start from scratch. In this case, the project we are embarking on is something that's going to be started from and inspired by whatever drum sounds we happen to create today. So we've got our basic plugin loaded up. It's on an instrument track. It's labeled. The routing is all kept default right now. So looking at our mixer, everything's going out this out 1, which is just the main out. We will be routing this stuff differently, but the way I approach this, I generally do the routing on a per track basis, partially because there are a lot of opportunities to use the routing structure as you come out of the plugin into the DAW to create interesting signal chains and layered paths. We're going to be in Pro Tools tonight. It's possible that if we are fast in Pro Tools, we may jump over into Ableton. Ableton has some idiosyncrasies that make the way I use Steven Slate drums noticeably different within Ableton, mostly because Ableton gives you a powerful drum rack already built in. The way the Ableton drum bus is set up and the way the groups work in Ableton mean that some of these workflows are a little different. I really like sound design, drum sound design in both DAWs. I find that Pro Tools has a little bit more leverage when it comes to shaping individual sounds and being precise about things. Also, the fact that its graphical layout puts things like inserts and edit points under my cursor are the advantage of Pro Tools. Ableton being a little bit ergonomic in terms of performance and in terms of routing. So, starting from basics in SSD. The basics are all contained within these Steven Slate drum sound packages. And when you're working in SSD5, you're not obligated to start from a Steven Slate kit, but they integrate with the mixer and the bleed routing in a way that is unique to these samples. They're built to work with this engine. You can build your own custom samples that work like these in this engine. It's pretty great, and that's definitely something for a later seminar. In general, I find it, well, SSD5 just came out, and this new sample pack is spectacular. So it's going to be a while before I feel the need for different sounds. So let's just pick a kit. Probably fast, fat rock. Probably not. So what I'm listening for is just something that catches my ear, something that inspires me to do more. Oh, spicy rock. Almost there. What I'm looking for is, I think right now, and I don't know why, but the thing that I kind of want to hear is a pretty dry, tight, pop rock, dancey kind of kit. Let's try one more, but this thud rocker is really pretty good. Let's try Go back into here. Like, yeah, okay, cool. And in general, Steven Slate sound packages really excel when it comes to things like heavy rock and pop country, anywhere where big rocky sounding drums are kosher. Cool, that sounds good. Steven Slate drum packages tend to work just as is. So it's worth noting that everything we do from here on out is about using this as a catalyst and a jumping off point. That said, this could be the destination. That's a really great drum tone that could be the basis for an entire professional mix. All right. So rather than, again, reading the manual and explaining how all this routing works, we're just going to assume that that's pretty much understood and start talking about how to best use it. So I'm going to start by bringing a groove in, because I find that hearing the samples by themselves, I regard them one way, but then hearing them as part of a groove that's dynamic with some dynamics to it makes me feel differently about it. It's a bit vanilla. Halftime, huh? I don't know. There it is. That's got some flavor to it. And it's really working well in this tempo. Woo! So autoplay is kind of a nightmare. You want to make sure that you turn that off and get your groove bank out of the way before you start working with your MIDI and your DAW. So now we've got this one groove here. Keep in mind that these humanized, or these drum performances were played in by really great drummers. And there's a lot of variation to velocity and timing that really make these grooves have that human feel that you often want. Sometimes you don't want that human feel, and in which case, quantize to your heart's desire. In this case, so that's a whole lot of open hat flourishes. I think what I'm going to do is take measure 1 of this particular progression and using relative grid mode, which is actually just fixed grid mode when you're talking about going from bar line to bar line. I'm going to select this measure. Probably not even that open hat. I'm going to change this open hat. Where are you? Enable my MIDI voice. And then try this as a loop. Cool. Loop playback, 4 on the number pad. Great. Are we not, though? Yeah, there we go. Doesn't want to, huh? Oh, so I get recording able. So this really has a top of the phrase articulation to it, meaning that this one really sticks out to my ear. It's anticipated, and you can hear the rhythm push towards the one. So that one is a little bit too strong for me as a repeated loop. So I'm actually gonna, take the one out of this guy. Use this as my first measure. Then I'm gonna take the rest of this groove, or this measure, and we're gonna copy it over using relative grid. So I'm just gonna go in and delete everything except the downbeat from this measure, and then bring in the one I like. Holding Option, plunk it over, and then this is going to be my 2-bar groove. Maybe this one is going to be good. Still a little heavy, so this measure is probably going to repeat. Let's see what happens here. Cool, so this groove might be worth it, although this is really kind of a fill at the end. I'd want that to vary. Perfect. So a lot of the time when I'm doing drum sound design, I like to just throw other sounds that might coexist with a kit like that I'm trying to build, just in rough form. Obviously, the vacuum patch that was going on from before this seminar is kind of a detuned and non-pitch specific bass, so we're going to ignore that for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this measure, this Philly measure, and I'm going to not use that for now. What I might do is actually use beat 4 from that. So take this guy. You know, again, what I'm doing is just working with the quality and humanized input of the drum groove, of the pre-made groove, and then just bending it to be the performance and the pattern that I need for this production. Oh, probably. Oh, that's going to be weird. Cool. Let's see how that worked out. Don't love that. So, oh, I see. So we lost the, that's what I want. I want that open hat. Nope. So you could always just try taking that hat from where it belongs. Yeah. Cool. And these pieces of the groove are locked together by the MIDI engine to sort of move in tandem. You can turn that off and then just have access to just one piece of the groove. Ooh. Good. Great, great. Okay, so, what else do we have? Yep. Don't need all that snare. Don't need all that snare here. These guys can go. And take this maybe from here. Let's try that. That is terribly awkward. All right, so let's just loop this guy. And get on to some sound design. Cool, so the kit we have, you know, as I said, could stand alone if it was the exact right kit for the song. Where we can start getting creative is by mixing and matching different pieces from different kits within the Slate architecture, or by adding our own samples. So let's try blending this with some kind of something from Splice. If you're not on Splice, I suggest you get on Splice. It's a pretty great forum and marketplace for just great sounding stuff. Most collections of sounds online have a much lower bar for quality. So in general, almost everything on Splice sounds great, and you don't have to sift through a whole bunch of garbage to find good stuff. Nope. Cool. So I kind of wanted to do this in real time, just to show you in general how this plays out and just kind of how easy it is to integrate something like SSD5 with Splice. So what I'm looking for here is some drum sounds that sound cool with what I've got. Let's see, let's look for wood shots, huh? That sounds weird. Yep. That's kind of avant-garde and weird. And the sound on this Aram computer is unforgivable that it would come out of the damn speaker. Yeah, that's a great one. I've already got that one. So let's go ahead and download that one. And yeah. And really, I'll just go into the Splice app. Where is the sign in? I feel like you sign in once for these things, and then you're just basically in for life, and having to re-sign in is a major ordeal. Yeah, right. All that. I want to do all that. Jesus. Yeah, really, just let me sign in, maybe? I don't know who that is, but let's log in. And we're gonna look for just the Cashmere. We'll go, I just got volume 2. I wonder if that's in, either way, we'll use 1. Cool, 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 cool. And then these sounds are gonna exist wherever they're set to download to on this particular drive, which we're gonna have to find. So where is that Splice directory? So if I come in here into Steven Slate, samples are integrated through the edit instrument or edit kit functionality. In this case, I want to add or subtract samples, so I'm going to use construct kit, switch it from instrument to samples, and then I have this very janky list of folders, not a browser. Thanks. Get on that, Steven Slate. And I just have to add, awkwardly, folders from my, there we go. And let's get right down to it. Let's do, I want to add some hip hop stuff. Yeah, that's real good. Cool, that's just gonna be a loop. And we'll just do that. So now we get this guy. And the way that Splice organizes its sound samples can be a little bit frustrating when each thing is in like 6 different folders. But a lot of the time you can just go through and reorganize things. Cool, so let's look in this guy. splice. Okay. Yep, and sounds, and so I'm gonna go into the app. Come on now. And I'm gonna go into here and just look for, start with some kicks. And let's see, yeah, let's do this guy. Cashmere is always reliable. And we will, yeah, then go find that. Yeah.
Can you also drag and drop?
Right out of the app, probably not into SSD5. Boy, wouldn't it be great. Oh, maybe. I did have a plus. Yeah, you would really think. Yeah, so it just dragged and dropped the whole folder in there. Kind of awkward. Let me try it onto a. Yeah, that'd be too easy, wouldn't it? Okay, so where the hell did that one go? All right, let's go. The crazy part about the way Splice organizes its samples too is that this could be a completely different folder called Splice and not the one we're downloading to. So if you're on a shared system, you want to be conscious of that so that you don't end up just searching through your menu endlessly to find stuff. Let's try this guy. Really, but the main thing we want to do here is find some one-shots and just make those part of the thing. Yep. Yeah. There should be a show in browser function right here, which is kind of, yeah, okay. I wonder if I drag this guy right there. Nope, none of that. None of that. All right, so let's just search through this ridiculous thing. Yep. And we've got menus that have no one-shots in it. I really should have checked this library out before I just dove into it. It's easy to underestimate just how crazy disorganized these sample libraries can get. So, geez, let's go find something, anything. Where did you download to? Yeah, so it's not in Splice. I didn't think so. There it is. All right, so that's going to be here. I wonder if I can drag and drop that. That is annoying. So over here, I'll play your little game, Steven Slate. We're going to go in here, do the same search for Cashmere, good. Yeah, here we go. And then 3 menus later, we're into it. Yeah. And it's an AIF. Steven Slate does not work with AIFs yet, which is really aggravating. Let's see. You should be able to download it as a wave, but this one, not so much. So we can import that into Pro Tools, and then we can make it a wave. So we're just going to go the long way here. drag and drop. Yeah.
Yeah, because so it lets you drag and drop from Pro Tools, but not from outside of Pro Tools.
Well, so dragging and dropping into Pro Tools is a different thing from dragging and dropping into SSD.
Oh, right.
Right. The question was dragging and dropping worked into Pro Tools. Why? And that's the answer. So we probably want mono summed here. Great. And then that would have gone to, let's just put it on the desktop. And then we're going to add the desktop to this guy. Cool. And then, yay, there it is. We can finally put a sample onto our sample slot. So under Edit Instrument, you have access to most of the same tools that you do for the Slate samples for any sample you bring in. So the first thing you want to do, the first thing I want to do, is map my sample to somewhere that it's going to be used. And in this case, I'm going to try to layer this electronic sounding kick drum with the organic kick drum in SSD. So I'm going to go into my mapping, because what I want to do is bind that sample to the same MIDI note that my kick is bound to. So the new samples are always down at the bottom, and my kick is bound to C1, so I'm just going to drag that up to C1. That makes it part of my kick. Now in Mixer, I have a separate channel for the Cashmere kick, and it's just blended in. First thing to do, I would say, is check your phase. So we get a lot of low end back when we flip phase on this guy. That's actually not too bad. And then what I would want to do here is start using the Steven Slate sample engine to try to make this sound at home with the existing samples. So I'm going to mute it real quick. This is my existing kick. It's pretty thuddy and pretty dry, which I think is going to blend really well with this bright, energetic electronic sound. The problem that they have right now is they're pretty far off in terms of their tuning. So I'm going to listen to the organic kick and then start tuning. Start tuning as best I can the incoming sample to, ooh, not the tambourine, to mesh. Yeah, let's try going down. Remember, you can match pitches either the up tune or down tune position. You don't necessarily have to be in the same exact tonality, and that drum hits are not precise pitches in general. So this is without the tuning. To me, they feel a little bit awkward. They feel like kind of a mismatch. Then my tuning went down, what, 21? That makes me feel like the pitch is a lot more at home. Woo! And let's delete that guy from the timeline and check out our loop with the kick we added. So that's without. And then if we wanted to favor that kick, simple. So you can use the sample engine to build your own drum racks here. And in general, when I'm in Pro Tools and I'm building something like a drum rack, I like the Steven Slate engine. It's got really great tuning algorithm, and the envelope control is pretty great too. In this case, I feel like the envelope is in a pretty good place. So I'm going to adjust my direct kick, take the room out. Kind of solo it with my cashmere kick. And the idea here is to create something that's more interesting and has more vibe than the sum of its parts. Let's take some overhead out. Cool. And I guess let's focus in on just the kick, given our timeline today. So we can adjust anything we want about the velocities and dynamics of the incoming MIDI performance. The second layer of sound design capability within SSD5 would be the outboard routing from the mixer. So if I take my kick DIR and I route that out to one of these mono plug-in buses, and then I'm going to route my cashmere kick. So I have the option of routing them to the same place. I also have the option of adding an aux within SSD, and then I could route both of them through the aux in SSD. This is great for having things like phase flips and for managing gain structure within the plugin and then sending out in a more simplified way. So sometimes you'll blend several signal paths within SSD and then say come out as one kick, right? In this case, we're going to come out as two things blended at the point of, or separate. So let's come out separate so that we can have two separate signal paths. So we'll come out 17 and 18, and then I'm going to create two new tracks. These are going to be mono audio tracks. Now they could be aux inputs. Audio tracks are great for printing, although really with commit, why not aux inputs? Great. And then these guys will take my input from the plugin and the way I'm setting this up is mostly to demonstrate the flexibility here. In a lot of cases, what you'd want is a more simplified version of this. And then now instead of playing out of the SSD bus, they're playing through two tracks over here in the mixer that I can adjust just like acoustic drums. So rather than sin against gain structure, roughly level match those at input levels that I like. Maybe group them up. Find a balance. Now, I think the attack on the cashmere kick is maybe a little bit too strong and it's overpowering the snare. We could take a little bit of attack off of that particular envelope and see how that treats us. So now if we solo the cashmere, So I'm using the attack function to take that digital click away from the attack of the kick. That's letting the attack of the organic kick come through and be the attack of the drum. And because we already fixed our phase and our tuning, these two drum samples are really blending in a way that is a lot more organic than if we hadn't. And by sculpting our envelopes, we're getting that overall envelope to sit more like the way we would want it to. Now I'm going to bus these to a kick bus, which lets me do all kinds of processing to them in a way that's not going to jeopardize their phase coherence. And so now I would just be down to processing like a normal or any other kick drum in order to do some creative stuff here. Let's talk about maybe getting our direct and duplicating and using this one for, say, a parallel distortion. So we're going to come in here and use the finest plugin known to man, the effect track from Sound Toys. And then we're just going to load up some drum destruction here. And that tape distortion is really pretty kind to the transient. Notice the tube distortion just mashes it to oblivion. Yeah, I like this guy. Cool little thump, little high cut up in here. Readjust my output because the auto function tells lies. Cool. And then this becomes something I can blend with these two to give me some mid-range girth, some nasty envelope thickening, whereas the first two kicks were really pretty precise in terms of their attack and then decay. This is a much more smeared envelope, and so it kind of helps give me some grit and some thickness. Let's go without it. And then, yep, maybe bring out that knock. And we can really get a really wide range of kick sounds just by blending any of these samples. The really powerful thing about SSD5, again, the sort of basic tuning and envelope control is probably the most important thing. The fact that then I could say take the direct mic away and just use only my overheads. I'd have to route that out separately. Take my overheads. So right now that's going out to 17, and it's very loud. This is just ways of bringing in only dimensions. So say I could take these overheads, trigger just the overhead from the kick, run that through a parallel chain of some kind, Interesting sounds like that are sounds that I love to bring in and out during productions for, effecty, breaky, drummy style fills, etc. So this has kind of been a basic blast through Steven Slate SSD5. Again, refer to Steven Slate's tutorials for basic routing structure. Look up how Splice saves your samples, because that can be a real hassle. In general, being a producer who's self-contained, working with electronic sounds, one of the biggest things you can do to benefit your workflow is organize your sample libraries better than we have here. So we'll leave it there, and we'll pick up again with a new seminar next Thursday. Thanks.